Welcome to WLNM's original English light novel review with your host, Zeke Changuritz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2 of the rebranded WLNM OELN Review, a podcast dedicated to promoting and discussing light novels with their authors and fans. We also dive into the writing process and ask those questions fans and writers alike have to ask. So without further ado, today's guest is Atish, the author of Avalon Volume 1, Lost Paradise, Silent Radiant, and Song of the Lost Birds. Welcome to the program, Atish.
Really happy to be here. Like, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, we tried doing this, during COVID, and it just never seemed to work out. So it's good to have you on here. So your most current project is Avalon Volume 1. So what can you tell us about the story?
So I would start from the very beginning. Avalon is kind of a passion project for me. It started 7 years ago when I watched an anime called Code Geass. That was the start of the entire story of Avalon. 7 years now, like 7 years later from then, the story has completely evolved into something completely different than what I thought it would be. And now I'll just explain the basics of it. So the year is 2040. The world is under a dictatorship by the kingdom called Avalon. And the story starts in the nation of India, which is still free somehow. And then we move on to the main character, Hasbro, who is about to see a large scale invasion happen in his own home country. The story is basically the story of a boy trying to find himself, find his reason of existence in this world, while also experiencing a lot of hardship and pain. That is the general idea. I want to show the story of this young boy who's basically, who will be, how should I explain it? Everything he loves and cares about will be taken away from him, and yet he'll have to come to accept the world and move forward. So that is the center of the story. That is how the base is created. And then we get into more of my favorite parts of it, like the geopolitics, the meta warfare, the some of the fantastical elements like power leveling and power scaling, all of that. And then we get Avalon. That is just the crux of it. I would like me and Pete are going to delve more into it as we move forward, but this is the basic.
So you said in a way it's you're focusing on the character development, as some used to say, hardship builds character, and you're literally doing that by throwing some of these uh, challenges at your lead character in order to help him develop as a person.
Yeah, that is the idea. So, yeah, go on.
So so you said there's power leveling involved in this. Are we set up with a medieval or Middle Ages Western Europe kind of world?
Oh, no, no, no. It's more of it's a futuristic world. It's a science fiction world.
Okay.
But yeah, but the principles of it comes from a very long, winded story. Like the story that my main character is gonna live has been being weaved since 6 billion years ago. There's an entire backstory to it, which would be slowly getting unraveled. I cannot speak a lot about it just yet, but like the story. So basically, I'll explain you the inspiration. I
Okay.
hope it clears everything. So it came. I'm a history major currently. I'm studying history in my university. So I've been seeing human civilization since the Stone Ages till today, and I've been fascinated by it, like how human beings live for a very little time. Yet, just by the simple act of living, they add one thread to this amazing tapestry we call human civilization. And we all know that we might not see tapestries do it so that in future whoever comes next can read another line at something. So that's the basic of it. So the humans who came before Sudan, they did something and then they led and they kept on building upon it. And now our main character is here. And he's going to live the story that has been like weaved by like millions of people over billions of years. And he is basically bringing an end to the story that started 6 billion years ago. That is the general idea. Because even we, as individuals, are living a story that our ancestors weave, and now we are basically trying to complete it. And so will the next generation do as well.
Okay. And as part of this almost like epic style setting, because you're having it evolve over uh, such a long period of time, or at least reaching back such a long period of time for the story's roots. You said that you're a history major. How much of that, uh, how much of that study of history um, makes you want to create or encourages or influences what you write?
A lot of it actually, because like I said, the idea of Avalon started from an anime, but as I kept on working on it more and more, I realized that to make the world more real, I needed it to have a strong history, a strong present, and a strong future. Like I needed to build a world which felt real. So I had to take a lot of aspects, like how and why is the story being written in this time, in the particular era I'm writing in it. Why is the main character in this era? Once I started asking these questions, I started going back in time. And once I reached back in time, I was confused because I didn't know a lot of history back then. So I started researching. I started with a small research on the ancient Indian history, the Roman history, and a bit of the Dark Ages of Europe. And then before I knew it, I became like a lover of history as a subject. And before I knew it, I took it as a major. And now, I'll be very honest, only in university have I realized how much history affects the way I write a story because there are so many ideas, the way people have lived in the past, the wars that have been fought, and the things that people have done, like kings, maybe the common people. All of these are basically, it's like free real estate giving me ideas every time I just go and read it. Like, since the world of Avalon resembles our own, a lot of history is similar to our own world. We have the Roman period, we have Attila the Hun, his period as well. But all of it has one element, which is how I basically, I cannot reveal it, I was about to, but it is connected to the entire narrative. Like how they lived, why they lived, and how they did their thing. And why did the way of their living affect the people of the future, the people I'm currently writing the story about. And it could only be done because I researched it, and all of these research helps me write Avalon, and not just Avalon actually. All the other stories that I've been working on, it has an element of history and an element of research because I aspire to be a researcher. So one of the things that I believe in is you need to research a lot to write well.
Well,
Yeah, this is the
you've mentioned research.
yeah, go on.
You've mentioned research quite a few times. Is is the research something that you really enjoy?
Oh yeah, I love it. Like writing is the hard part. I've said it multiple times, but research is the most fun part. Like all the ideas coming to light. You're reading so much, you're highlighting, you're acquiring so much knowledge, and then you take this knowledge and convert it into your plot lines or plot devices or world building. I just love it. Like that is what I do most of the time.
You enjoy the world building as you obviously enjoy the world building. Is it easier for you to build worlds than it is to create the plot that progresses through them?
I I think it's the opposite. The plot is easier, the world is harder. Like I enjoy it, but it's harder to create the world because it nearly took me 7 years to completely build the world of Avalon right enough to be able to write it properly. Like I tried writing Avalon before. You can even find it on the Honeyfeed, my Honeyfeed profile, and that was very fast. And that's not how I visualize Avalon to be. So what I feel is world building is the hardest part. The actual plot of Avalon took like 3 years, and now I know the ending. How I'm going to end the series. The world really took me 7 years. So that's the hard part.
So, i- do you, in your process, do you know the ending as you're starting? You know where you want to end up, or is that something that you come to organically after putting the characters in the setting and understanding them and seeing how they play out?
It's more of an organic progression as well as some external forces like the novels that I've read during the time I've been brainstorming the ending, or maybe any anime I've watched or a game I've played. So these are the things that lead me to find the ending. But I need to be brainstorming the ending in my head, and the ending only comes to me when I have visualized the characters, just like you said. I have put them into the setting. I have made them do what they have to do, put all the hardships and everything, and then one fine day, it's just done. I just don't know how it does. It's just in there. I just need to find it. This is something that my mentor said. When you're writing a story, inside your head, there are knots. And one by one, those knots keep opening up and your story starts moving. And that only happens when you're constantly brainstorming the idea of your book or the story. Of story.
That's a very creative way of putting it, as you're kind of untying the knots that you end up with is symbolic of the different segments or the different movements of the story. Is when you're did you come to writing later, or did you start have you always been a writer, or is it something that you came to uh you know in high school? When did you realize that you really liked creating stories?
Writing came much later, but creating stories, I think I have had that since forever. Like, I cannot pin down when I started creating stories, but the one that I remember is, I think it was 2004, 5, or 6, around the time I had just watched I think I watched the Pokemon series and the Transformer and Digimon series. And what I used to do was I used to spend my time alone at night when my mom and daddy would take us to sleep. And I used to put myself in the world of Pokemon or Digimon or Transformer. And I used to create a different story in which I was the main character. Over time, it evolved as I started reading more books. Like I read a lot of Harry Potter. Percy Jackson was one of the most important books in my life, not because the story is great, which I still think is, but that is what that made me realize I can actually write. Because until then, I used to think that writing is only for the great writers like Hemingway, or we can have Rabindranath Tagore, or even Rick Riordan. Like these are the guys who write. I can't be one of them. Or at least that's how I used to think back in sixth grade. It was in seventh grade when I had completed reading the Percy Jackson series and Years of the Lost series, and I read a lot of fan fiction around it, and I realized, oh, I can actually write. These people can write these fan fictions, and what is stopping me? So it was in seventh grade actually when I started penning down the stories I had in my mind for so long, and then it just kept on happening, and I'm here still doing it.
The Yeah, and I kind of get what you are saying, especially early on. Macross, the Macross saga was very influential when I
Yes,
was a
yes.
kid for me, and probably the first piece I ever wrote. And to me, it was epic. It was probably less than 10 pages, but it was a story in a Macross-like environment, um, filled with, alien invasions and transforming, transforming F-14s. And it
Yeah,
was my first kind of venture into that writing space. I probably had been telling stories long before that, but because we were big with using our imaginations when I was growing up, because we grew up, well, I grew up in the pre-internet age. I grew up in you know, there was nowhere else to go on the family farm because, everyone else was, miles away. So, you have to be creative to come up with your play. And but my first writing, like trying to write a story from beginning to end, a real story that fascinated me, probably was that Macross style story that wouldn't even qualify as a short story nowadays, and probably was one big long run on sentence. But it was, I truly understand what you mean about how those things that we take in when we're kids and we're trying to create our own versions of those stories can be that gateway to becoming writers and becoming more creative.
you know, when you talked about the pre-internet era, I actually related to it a lot because I won't call myself part of the internet era because in India, like internet got normalized only in around 2017. Before that, it used to be there, but it used to be very expensive. So much so that imagine getting only 1 gigabyte of internet for 1 month
Yeah.
for around $5. So that's how it was. It
Yeah.
actually helped a lot,
Yeah.
because when you don't have the internet, you read a lot. So yeah,
Yeah, I do accept, I am I do a lot of e-reading nowadays because I can't store like a billion books on a shelf anymore. So I would still need to find a way to connect to the internet just to bring in, just to download the latest ebook. But one of the things that my wife and I have tried to do, when we do take time off, we try and take time off in both ways. I mean, one of the best things she can do is absolutely disconnect from the world and the internet. And we've done that a couple times just so we can just, you know, focus on each other and ourselves and not get caught up in the distractions of everything.
I actually really admire that. That's something I really want to do because honestly, recently I've been missing the days when I had no internet, when it only used to be going out and playing maybe football or cricket with friends or reading novels at home. That really was therapeutic. I genuinely feel that way.
Well, when um when you are reading, what are you consuming? What kinds of stories do you tend to gravitate towards when you're reading?
I think it depends on maybe the mood. Like I consume a lot of novels. It doesn't need there's no specific genre I really love. At least in reading. In anime in general, I have fallen in love with mecha, and that is also right. But when it comes to novels, I think what I have come to admire a lot, at least in my recent years, 21, 22, is the writing style. So I really enjoy, at least at the moment, I enjoy reading the classic novels like Hemingway, Charles Dickens, Alexander Dumas Laird, all these old novels, and I have been reading them a lot. Like I recently bought a lot of Hemingway short stories, and I have been reading them. And the way Hemingway is writes is something I got inspired by a lot because he describes a scene perfectly, flawlessly even, and he will go to every small details of how the room looks and how are the things placed. And he's not doing it just for the sake of it. If you read it carefully, you'll understand that there are Easter eggs and there is plot hidden inside those descriptions. Basically, he's giving away the entire story in that one scene, but you won't get it until you have read the entire book. That is something I've come to admire.
Yeah.
Oh, and as for light, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. If you've read anything contemporary, though, I appreciate. I mean, I'm a Hemingway fan. I'm a Fitzgerald fan. To me,
oh, I was about to talk about that. Like I read Great Gatsby recently. Amazing book, yeah, man. Amazing book.
yeah, Great Gatsby is one of my all-time favorite stories. Uh, a lot of it being because it's an ill-fated romance. No matter, he wants to try and be good enough for this girl that he fell in love with, and no matter what he does, he doesn't seem to be able to break into the society that she is in, and so he can become as her equal, even with all the money and all the fame that he has and all the people who pretend to be his friends. I really just, ever since I first read that novel, it's been one of my favorites just because it's also short. He told an amazing story. It didn't need to be 1,000 pages. I think it's only 70,000 words or something like that. But he told a timeless story in a much shorter format than uh, most contemporary novels.
And I actually, since you talked about it was short and it gave an ending, something came into my mind. I've been having this discussion with my mentor and my friends recently. In recent years, I feel that people who are creating media have forgotten the art of ending. You know, and that's very important. Like, you have a great story, you are doing great, amazing characters, but it's the ending that makes it timeless, that makes it a classic. And the reason why we love the old series, at least for me, like Code Geass or Singing to Pagur and Lagan, the OG Gundam, they all had an ending that I was satisfied with. And it didn't took them like 1,000 episodes or 600 episodes. It only took them like 36, 26, or 50 episodes at max.
Yeah, the ability to be brave enough to type those words, the end, is a challenge, I think, for a lot of writers nowadays, because they just want to, as they used to say, milk the cash cow as long as they can to, keep churning it out. I mean, even One Piece has got to end one day.
Yeah, we all are waiting for that. And like, I don't know when it's going to end.
I don't think Oda Sensei even knows when it's going to end. He keeps teasing that, oh, it'll wrap up sometime soon, and another 100 chapters go by.
I want to know what does he mean by soon?
Yeah,
1,000 more chapters?
when he dies, that's it. He'll just keep doing that until
Oh,
he finally gives out, and just and the publisher will be like, we're going to have somebody else continue the story so it finally ends, and it'll go on for another generation before it is handed off to another. It's like the great saga. 1,000 years from now, they'll be like, in the world, back in the search for the One Piece, as it's become a religion because it's been going on so long. Yeah, it's yeah, the end sometimes is some of the most powerful words you can use because it's that finality, I think, that gives things meaning sometimes. I mean, it gives life a lot of meaning to know that there is a day that you will not be here anymore. And so you need to make the most of what you can. And if you can't type the end and create an ending for the story, it's not it's not a story. I mean, stories have beginnings, middles, and ends. You got to find the end sometime.
at the moment, I think the only last thing I would like to add is it is just great talking about Avalon with you, to be very honest. And I had time of my life just discussing writing with you, and there were a lot of good conversations that we had. the way we talked about the ending, how we got writing, and trust me, like I was inspired at the end when you talked about how life has meaning because it has the end. That that was something that really made to hear. So yeah,
Yeah.
except that, nothing else, man. Like really, really appreciate you to have me here today, and looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, there'll most definitely be a next time. Thank you very much for joining me today. And remember, if you're to our listeners, that click the subscribe button because it helps the OELN community. Because the more times this is liked and subscribed to, the more often it shows up in somebody else's feed. And if it's a new person, that's exposing them to a light novel author and hopefully comes back to them in the realm of getting new readership. So please hit like, subscribe, and until next time, keep reading.
This has been a WLNM podcast.